Welcome to Chat with Nat, Conversations That Count, where we dive into faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun, the things that really shape our lives. Today, I'm extra excited because my guests aren't just friends, they're part of the heartbeat of both my business and behind this very podcast. Julie DeLucca-Collins, founder of Go Confidently Services, helps small business owners find clarity and confidence, and she is also the host of Casa De Confidence Podcast. Julie also works alongside her amazing husband, Dan Collins, who I refer to as the man in the chair, in their podcast business, Casa De Confidence Productions. Dan is the creative mind behind dozens of wonderful podcasts and the wizard who makes sure this show gets from my mic to your ears. Together, they're a dynamic duo who know what it means to build a business and a life that is rooted in purpose. Before we dive in with our guest today, though, here's your quick financial tip of the week. Consistency beats intensity. Whether it's putting $50 a month into savings or starting with small investments, the power of compound growth rewards those who stay steady. Even small, regular steps add up to big results over time. So don't wait for perfect. Just start. Now let's jump into today's conversation with Julie and Dan, where we'll explore what it takes to grow a business, a marriage, and a mission together. Dan and Julie, welcome to Chat with Nat. I'm excited to get to spend some time with both of you today.
We are so happy to be here. You know, after that introduction, I'm ready to go run. I think I need to go outside and get a little exercise. It's been years since I've actually run. But I think I can do it right now.
I don't know what that's got to do with anything, but notice how he wanted to get the first word in. I love it.
I love it too. Hey, Dan is usually behind the scenes.
That's right.
So you know what, Julie, we should give him the first word.
Well, he gets the first word in my podcast on Sundays, you know?
We all know Julie's going to get the last.
That's true.
There
That's
you
what
go.
Counts.
Actually, you guys are guests with me, so I get the last
that's
word.
right.
That's
right.
true.
We forget.
That
We
is true.
forget where we are. Yeah. Welcome to Chat with Nat. I love it. This is so thrilling, and I could not be any more happier and excited that you've made a shift, and that it's a shift that I feel fits you to a T. So, congrats.
Thank you. I'm really excited about it. I loved nickels and dimes and really getting that financial education out there. But the more I got into it and the more variety of guests that I brought on the show, while of course I could make the connection to finances because it touches every parts of our lives, I really wanted my podcast to incorporate all of it.
Yeah.
And so that's behind the shift, as last week's episode talked more in depth about. But you guys are my first official guests on Chat with Nat. So
Wow.
I feel like I should send you some gold star stickers or something.
Actually, you know, speaking of gold star stickers, one of the people who I met a couple weeks ago, she's going to be on my podcast, and her name is Kat, but she sent me pom-poms.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so happy. And they're red because that's her color too, her business color. But she sent me that, and she sent me stickers, and I'm like, I need to make some and send them to people too.
I think Julie's saying you need to get some Chat with Nat pom-poms made up and send them out
or some
to her.
stickers, you know?
Yeah. I feel like she just coached me to level up for my podcast guests.
That's what I do. Coaching first and foremost.
Which I'm grateful for. I love getting to work with you on both sides of your business, Julie, because whether we're talking about the podcast or my business, you're constantly giving me tips on both because they are very connected. And so our focus may be on the podcast one week, but there's a lot that rolls over into the other side of my business and my life. So I love it.
Well, hey, by the way, I love that, again, you're making these connections with how everything is interconnected, right? The business, the podcast, but then also in life, the faith, family, fun, fitness, all interconnected into finances as well. And I think that that's one of the things that happens a lot in the world is that we create these silos and we try to put our professional life here and put this thing here, but we are not these pieces of the puzzle. We are one whole person, and we feel, we think, we, iterate. So anyway, just going
Yeah.
off, that's been occurring to me. It's been the theme for the day.
That's okay. Listen, we go with the flow on this show, which is something else I love. And this format, I think, makes that even easier to do. I tell people all the time, I will have some questions that I ask, but we're going to go wherever the conversation takes us. Because I think whatever we're prompted to talk about is what somebody out there that's listening absolutely needs to hear that day.
100%. 100%.
So I want to start with just a little bit of background, Julie, because I know this leads into the podcast question, which you have your podcast, but you both do your intros together, and then you work together on coaching other podcasters, producing, editing those podcasts. So as that initial conversation, Julie, tell us a little bit about how you got started in your business. Go Confidently.
Well, I guess I'd like to say that it started when I got laid off at the beginning of the pandemic. But when I married Dan, he knew that he was getting a complex person. And I've always had a little side hustle going on. And I knew that I wanted to do something more, but I didn't really quite know what that more was going to look like. And I had some iterations. And in 2017, I decided to go through coaching certification. And my intent was eventually I was going to leave my job in New York City because I was commuting from here in Connecticut, about 2.5 hours away. I would go in on Tuesdays, stay for the day or a couple days, and then come home. Dan used to call me the weekend wife. And I thought, maybe once I'll go out on my own and I'll do something, but it wasn't really quite clear. And in 2017, unfortunately, my friend and mentor who ran the company, the founder of the company that I worked for, she passed away. And I did not feel that was the right time to leave the company, especially because we were all grieving, but we all really were committed to making sure that we continue to live and work and share her legacy. And the more that I stayed, the harder it became to leave. And of course, there was always that little there's more, but not being able to put my finger on it. And then December of 2019, I thought, okay, well, maybe this is the year. But I was so scared, Natalie, because and this is so stupid, right? The first thought I had is ooh, what are my high school friends going to think? They think I'm crazy, that I'm leaving a corporate job, a successful job, an executive job to go do what? And it was so dumb. And I thought, oh, who cares what they think? But I did. You care. And there's a part of you that is always, I don't know, wanting to fit in. That's what our human nature wants to do. And of course, went about my business, and the universe had other plans. The universe had COVID in mind. And as I was going all in and trying to figure out how I was going to continue to help my company that I worked for navigate lockdown, and we were an educational company. So for all intents and purposes, right, we were suffering until I got a call from the COO of the company. And he's a good friend. We worked together for many years, and he sounded like someone had died. And I said, what's the matter? And he said, I've been laid off. They let me go. And I said, what? I don't understand. And immediately I went into fix-it mode. But don't worry about it. And I start to tell him how great he is and how he's got so many gifts and how maybe he can do a fractional COO or CFO and how you name it, right? And then all of a sudden it hit me. Wait a minute. He's the COO. What does that mean for the CIO, right? Because I was Chief Innovation Officer for the company.
Yeah.
And as I had him on the phone, I jumped into Teams and I sent a message to the CEO. And I said, hey, I'm on the phone with Alan, and he's just told me what happened. Am I next? And I could see the little dots going. And then all of a sudden, I got a call from him. And I remember the pit in my stomach, Natalie. And I remember thinking, and I thought, no, that's not going to happen. And of course, that's exactly what happened, right? And I was let go. And at that moment, the first thought that came to mind was, I know exactly what I'm going to do.
Mm.
And Dan is sending me notes. He's telling me, he's coaching me. Okay, so I knew exactly what I was going to do,
Yeah.
although I couldn't describe it to you, but I already knew this is it. This is my opportunity. I'm going to do it. And of course, it started to take shape that night. I cried for the first time about the job and did a little bit of grieving, which still happened for some time. I had to leave a company and identity. And Dan was incredibly supportive through that process. In the middle of the night, that first night, I got up and I wrote a mission and a vision statement on my phone because it came to me and I knew that I wanted to help women. I knew that women sometimes are the ones who don't put themselves first, who don't give themselves credit, who lack the confidence and think that they need to have the confidence to take that first step where we need to do it imperfectly. We need to do it scared. And then we're going to find the evidence and we're going to be able to build our confidence. So I wanted to create a movement and not an organization, but just something that would impact the lives of women. Because when women work at making money and they make money, 90% of them reinvest in their families or communities, whereas the number for men is 30%. Sorry, guys, but that's the reality. And yet women make less and women tend to have less opportunities. So I didn't really quite know I was going to do business coaching, but I knew that I wanted to make the impact lives of women. And of course, Dan was all in. He never questioned. He never said, go get a job. He never said, where's your resume? What are you doing? Are you crazy? And I think that that's where the magic came about. Yeah. I think that that's where the magic came about.
Yeah, I love that. You know my story and I say it all the time that if it weren't for the pancake flip of my personal life and my career, I don't know where I would be. Probably still an hour commute each way in a corporate job, making six figures as an executive, which was a great place to be while I was there. But those huge changes in my life are what opened the door. And mine was at the end of, well, let's see. Mine was at the end of 2018 going into 2019. But again, like 2020 for me, I got all this time back because I was working from home. And that was really the catalyst to get my mind thinking about growing my business to full-time and replacing my corporate income.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes that we have these ideas in our head. Someday I'd like to, or I really want to help. And you have this desire. And if you don't act on it, whether it's universe, God, whatever it is you believe in, at some point is going to part the sea, part the clouds, open the sky, and just push you in the direction that you're supposed to go, ready or not.
Absolutely. And you know, Natalie, there's actually a physiological thing that happens when we have a mission, right? Our brain is always going to go into the worst case scenario. It's going to have that lizard brain. It's going to go into fight or flight. But when we have a mission, when we have that connection to a greater purpose and we reconnect with that, it actually begins to shift your brain more so than the positive conversation that you can say, oh, you can do it, or try to shift your mind, your thoughts, right? Yes, we can shift our thoughts and that's possible, but that becomes much more possible when our brain starts to shift from the inside out.
Yeah, I agree. So, Dan, I want to ask you, because I have no doubt that you were all in and go for it, Julie, chase that dream, chase this calling that's on your heart. But from your perspective, what was that transition like for you, watching it happen, but also being that supportive participant?
Well, so I knew Julie had a big birthday coming up, the biggest. So she had that birthday coming up, and COVID was budding, and that was the first steps of our society being shut down for a while. And Julie was like, all right, this is going to blow over. This is going to go by quick. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen. And Julie got laid off, and I'm like, you know what? We can do this. It's time for her to take a chance and grab onto this and do something special. She's
Yeah.
always said, ever since I've known Julie a very long time, since I was
20.
20. And obviously back then we were not romantically involved.
Not at all.
Uh,
He didn't like me. Just saying.
it's not that I didn't like you. You were just opinionated and
Has anything
and
changed?
you let everyone know about it. But you were a lot more brash back then.
Oh.
But
Okay, I'll
I'm
take
not
that as a
saying-
compliment.
You know what? I've grown a lot since then too.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
His mind has blossomed and opened.
just because a woman is just because a woman is bold doesn't mean she's like brash in a bad way.
Yeah.
He wants to say a bitch. Can I say that?
Yeah. You can say that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say it.
I heard what he really said.
Yeah.
You know,
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I know that's a sidebar, but if most women acted like men do, she'd get categories as a bitch, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I said the word. You guys, bad influence.
You're welcome.
Anyway, so back then, I knew her as a strong person, strong individual who had huge expectations of herself in her life. And every time that she had a new opportunity, she took advantage of that. I mean, she worked for Macy's back in the day when she was younger. And she said, and I have no doubt she was one of the best Macy's employees they had.
I made it to manager in less than
I believe
6 months.
I believe that.
Oh.
She was the confirmation director and junior high youth minister for her church. And I know for sure that she did an incredible job there. And she touched a lot of lives of young people that she still knows today, which are in their 40s.
Thank you, Dan.
Which is crazy.
I mean, if anybody can do math, they've already figured it out, Julie.
Yeah.
The big birthday and the year you started your business.
Listen, I'm 55. I'm proud. I'm proud, and I'll say it.
So when it came time and the opportunity presented itself, and it was obvious that this was a sign that it was time for her to go big with her life and leave the biggest impact she could. So I was on board. It's on board. Julie's bigger than life. And it was time for her to do that. So I said, Julie, happy birthday. Here's your podcast equipment. You're going to start a podcast. You've been talking about it for a long time. Let's do this. And we didn't know necessarily that podcast was going to fold in with her budding business that she was going to start. But it those two things, and you were talking, Natalie, earlier about your podcast and how you're changing, opening up to other topics.
Yeah.
We didn't know that her business, her podcast, her life, her friends, her future friends, so many friends she's made in this world now, would be such a holistic experience.
Oh, he's gonna make me cry for the love of God.
I know.
And sorry, I don't want to speak too nice about you. I mean, people know that I have a slant here, but yeah, I could see that it was her time. And whatever I could do, and I don't want to sound all selfless and whatever, I knew it was going to be tight,
Yeah.
in a struggle at first. But it was time to do that. It was time to get on board, and it was time for Julie to start developing the impact that she's going to make in the second half of her amazing life.
Huh.
I love that. That was beautiful. It's so I don't know if y'all know, but Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift got engaged.
Oh,
It's all over the socials today.
I have not been on social today.
Oh, well, surprise.
Shocking.
But the reason I say that is she was just recently on their podcast, Travis and Jason Kelce's podcast, which is my joy podcast, believe it or not.
Oh.
They are hilarious. They make me laugh. And she was a guest on there. And as I was watching some of the clips earlier over lunch with my mom, we were chilling. I was kind of flipping through social, and there were some snippets of that episode of the podcast. And she is talking about Travis, and she says, he brings so much joy to everybody's life. He is a human exclamation point.
Oh,
That's
so
amazing.
good.
And even Jason, like you see in the video, you could tell like the emotion kind of hit him as like, oh my gosh, what a beautiful description. He's like, I'm going to use that from now on. And that's how I feel like Dan just talked about you. And at the end of the day, any partnership we're in, whether it's a friendship, a business partnership, a marriage, and for you guys, that happens to be all of the above, right? How much better could you have it than to see your person as that exclamation point? And that is not to say that y'all don't have your moments individually or together, right?
Right.
But that you accentuate, you punctuate everything that the other one does. And so
100%.
I was listening to that, and all I could think about was that little clip where Taylor Swift was describing Travis Kelce that way.
Good.
So
I'm gonna
listeners,
have to go
if
watch that.
Yeah, listeners, if you hear this episode and you didn't know they were engaged, then you're not on social media, because this isn't airing for a couple weeks. But you go.
It's funny you said it. I was like, that is incredible, because what a catch.
Yeah, right.
Taylor is so lucky.
I don't know. I think he did all right for himself.
He did
too.
all right.
I think he did all right.
They did all right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And listening to that episode and watching some of the video clips of it humanizes her so much. Like Travis has always been this goofy outward, right? That's just always been his persona, even though he's an NFL player. But to hear her tidbits in that podcast, you saw a very different side of her, because you always see her as the performer.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. But I love that description, and I feel like, that's an example that Dan just gave. And I think that's the power behind what you do. And to comment on what Dan said, your future friends, I'm one of those friends. I would not have a podcast today if I hadn't met you in a business mastermind group that branched off into, it was a business mastermind group with the Hollis Company. And then it branched off into our own that Shannon Hale ran. Shout out Shannon.
Shout out.
But she started that up, and that's where you and I met. And after a few months, you asked me to be a guest on your podcast. And from there, like, yes, I had my business, but the influence you've had on my business, the influence you've had on me as a businesswoman, and then the influence or the push to get my voice out there by being a guest on your podcast, on your radio show, start my own radio show that has now morphed into the podcast world for me. It's just an example that you were absolutely called to do the work that you do, because I would have a very lame financial services business. It would not have
that. You're not lame
the
at
Julie
all.
DeLucca-Collins flair.
Hey,
so I'm just saying.
You're talking about that mastermind, and yesterday I was on social in the middle of the night. Like, I shouldn't have been, but our friendship anniversary was yesterday.
It was
5 years. And I was going to tag you on it. Happy friendiversary. And I was going to tag you, and I, got sidetracked. But
if I'd have known, I'd have definitely sent you some other pom-poms.
Oh, well, thank you.
Just so you had two sets.
There you go.
I love that. Oh my gosh. So that would have been, was that 5 years ago?
That's 5
Was it
years
5
ago.
years?
Yeah.
It would have been, right? Because that was
Wow.
2020. That's amazing.
Yeah. And you know
Look
how I
how
got
much-
to be in that mastermind? Because I asked Mindy to be on the podcast, and I just loved her, and I loved her energy from watching her and coaching with Rachel, and I thought I want to be around people like that.
Yes.
And that was exactly, the relationship. And by the way, Mindy was Dan's first podcast customer.
Mm-hmm.
Really? I love Mindy. She's amazing.
Yep.
Shout out to you too, Mindy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I saw Mindy from, the live trainings that Rachel would do, just like you did. And I went to the summit or the event, the conference, whatever they had here in Dallas that summer. And I literally fangirled out. Mindy came down the hall and Shannon stopped her so they could get a video clip interviewing her. And I had started talking to her, and their videographer needed to do it right then. So Shannon was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Can I steal her for a minute? And then a bunch of other people came up and I had to go. And so I never got to finish that conversation. But from there, I followed her on social media. I started following Shannon. And that's really how, I got into that group as well. And and look at us now.
Yeah.
Look at us now.
And
5 years later and killing it.
And it's not just you and I, but we forged really good relationships like Julia Toothaker and Dr. Kristen Cook, both podcasters, by the way. Go check them out. But it's the essence of high-minded, mission-driven women coming together, right? And we can't do it alone. We have to have the people that believe in us. And often in our podcast, we talk about believing mirrors. And I do think that that's exactly what all of us have become for one another, is these believing mirrors where we reflect each other, where we should remind each other, hey, you got it going on, girl.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think to touch on what Dan was saying about meeting you when you were younger and kind of describing you as brash, like really direct, vocal about it. That is how most people that knew me in my 20s would have described me as well. And I will tell you, all of those ladies that we just mentioned in the last couple minutes of our chat, I would say fall into that exact same category.
Yeah.
So birds of a feather. And Dan, by the grace of God, polishes us all up beautifully.
Yeah, he does.
So you have him as the partner 24/7 to do that for you. But I think that go ahead.
I was going to say it's hard to make diamonds more beautiful, but I try my best.
Oh, look at him. Well, even he polishes us up, but there is a price to pay. I get to trip over his shoes every once in a while.
There you go. That's true. There you go. Hey, and even diamonds need to be shined up every now and then. You got to shine those suckers up. But yeah, I think that's so important that, Dan was talking about meeting you younger and mentioned that he's matured since then too. But I think that's a journey that we all go on. I think those of us women who do have strong personalities and very bold voices and opinions tend to soften a little bit as we mature. We are still who we are, but I think that we use the fine sandpaper on the edges a little. Yeah. And then I think the men in our lives in all different capacities also mature and see that as not a combative situation, but a coming from a place of strength. Yeah. And that shared vision, that shared idea is what drives us forward. Because I look at my boyfriend, Chris, and I know, as a matter of fact, he doesn't hide it very well. So I often see the eye rolls or the little bit of the shake of the head when I'm in my sassy pants.
Right.
For sure. But he helps me to remember to polish it or soften it once in a while where I need to. And then, but he pushes me and supports me, and he's my biggest cheerleader at the same time. And so it's a really beautiful balance of strength, growth, and how we morph over time. Right. And that's really, that's exactly what my podcast is going through.
Yeah.
It's grown. It got legs underneath it. And then now there's a shift. It's maturing. And the stories
100%.
I want to tell and the messages I want people to receive from listening, it's all part of that growth or that maturing process as well. And so I think it just comes full circle, but it's sticking to it because Julie, you said, you've got to be willing to do it scared.
Yeah.
You've got to be willing to do it feeling like you're unqualified, unpolished. You've got to be willing to fall on your face. Success is a big thing that I've been looking at, and I wouldn't say redefining recently, but maybe understanding all the nuances of success.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the biggest one is you can't get there without the mistakes, without tripping and falling, sometimes right on your face. You can't get to the thing you're trying to accomplish unless you learn some lessons along the way, because otherwise you just step into it and have it. And that's not how life works.
Yeah, agreed.
It's a growing process. So
agreed. And Natalie, one of the things that I think it's very important for people to keep in mind is that your journey doesn't have to look, and your success doesn't have to look like anybody else's, because what I consider success, what you consider success could be similar, but it's going to mean different things too, because of our circumstances, where we are, who's around us, and what our vision and what our values are. And there's nothing wrong with somebody else having different values than you. It just means that you're going to define things, and the meaning that you're going to attach to things is going to be different.
Yeah, that's true. And you mentioned too, stepping into this world, you thought my friends are going to think I'm crazy. Like, what am I walking away from the successful executive 6-figure income, multiple 6-figure income, whatever it looked like, to do this little thing that I can't even fully put into words yet, looks like. But one of the other things I've seen or has resonated, I've seen it before, but it's resonated more lately, is the idea that nobody that's where you're trying to get to is going to criticize you.
That's absolutely correct.
Right? They're going to be your biggest cheerleaders. The people who, and maybe it's not always criticism, but question. Are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah,
are you
what
sure
are you
that's
doing?
A smart decision? Not from a sense of trying to tear you down, but they're trying to level check you. Like, are you sure this is the direction you want to go?
Yeah.
And it comes from a place of their comfort zone.
100%.
As you're going through a place of like, I'm busting down the wall to my comfort zone because there's something else out there for me.
Yeah.
And that's the work that you help all of us do at another level, because all of your clients are not at the same place in their business, and they don't all have the same kind of businesses.
No.
But you're helping us to bust through in areas of leadership, or if our focus is growth this year, you're helping us bust through those limitations we've set for ourselves around growth and move in those directions because otherwise, if you don't have somebody pushing you, challenging you, then you get in a comfort zone in this new place you've created too. Right?
Listen, and I am going to be the pushy one. And because I'm not afraid of, and I think that this is one of the things that Dan and I often talk about, that why our relationship, again, we have practice spouses. So we learned that there's
you went practice spouse?
I did.
Oh, okay.
So our practice spouses, but we believe in the practice of radical candor. And is it easy? Do we have easy conversations as spouses, as business owners? Never.
Yeah.
No, it's not easy. It's a work in progress.
Well, the thing is, you talk about radical candor, and that's a business terminology, but we try to apply that in our lives to where we have a conversation. Sometimes we have to remind each other about this.
Right.
But what I'm going to say to you, or what you're going to say to me, is just the facts, or this is how I feel. And I need you not to be upset by it or not lash back because of the way you feel.
Yeah.
And can you please receive this? And in a way to where, you know, it's okay for me to have these feelings.
Right.
Mhm.
But we try to not react to one another.
And that's what
that's something that comes with age.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder when you're in your early 20s to not react.
Right.
Yeah.
But the radical candor is we're allowed to say what we're thinking without a
Mhm.
reaction.
And as a coach, that radical candor concept, and of course, I've always been the outspoken. I've always been the person who's going to call it out before anybody else, wants to call it out. But I want to call it out because there's times in which I wish if I see you or somebody else that I'm coaching going in a direction that I've been and it didn't work out. And I think that, hey, also, that's not what you committed to. That's not what your dreams are. That's not what your values are. But you're going, I have the responsibility as your coach to tell you, hey, I don't know how you feel about that, but what do you think the outcome is going to be?
Yeah.
And to call it out as I see it.
Yeah.
And that's difficult. And I think that that's one of the biggest challenges that as coaches, because we're not therapists.
Right.
We are going to be the person who's going to, again, be that believing mirror with radical candor and then be able to ask you the questions that are going to lead you to the outcome that you desire.
And I think the other aspect here, or the other dimension dynamic of this is, and this kind of goes to society a little bit. It goes to how we interact with one another a little bit. And it also goes to business a little bit.
Yep.
You can be talking about something. I'll use an example of you and me. You could be talking about something and trying to get this point or explain this to me. And I'm thinking about it in an entirely different way.
Yeah, 100%.
And I am translating what you're saying through the filters in my brain.
Yes.
Yep.
And if you got to kind of be sensitive to that and say, wait a minute, are you understanding this like this?
Yeah.
Or in a different way? And then we've had this discussion between, like, you thought I was mad about something. And oh, stop. I said this.
Yep.
I didn't mean it like this.
Yeah.
Listen to what I meant, and I'll re-explain it. Just be like, okay. I'm still upset because I misunderstood.
Right.
because it still hit me. But I get that, and I'm not saying we're perfect, our relationship, that we don't have arguments, stuff like that. But that's something there that could be applied to business. I wish it was applied to some things in society, because
I agree.
we're there's a lot more arguing than there is conversation.
Yeah. And Natalie, there's something that as Dan was speaking, and this is something within our relationship, right? Within our romantic spouse relationship. In my first marriage, and it's very prominent in my brain because the Passionistas book dropped today, and that's what I talk about. It's that experience. And in my first marriage, I don't want to put him down, but I'm going to say it. I was shamed a lot for some of the way that I handle finances.
You're not putting him down. You're just stating a fact of the situation.
There you go.
I really remember, without going into a lot of details, I mean, yes, I made some mistakes in my life, but then there were also some extenuating circumstances. But I was made to feel, right? He didn't make me feel. I felt. That was my choice. But I felt so ridiculously low and ashamed of myself for mistakes with money.
Yeah.
And although I've gotten better and I'm working at being better and making better choices with money, when things kind of fall or go off I still come to Dan and I'm like, oh, he's going to yell at me. Oh my God, he's going to. And I have nothing but understanding and compassion and things that would have set him off, my ex, right? Dan is like, we'll work it out together. And I just can't help but to see that compassion. I actually just spoke about this too a couple nights ago. I went to dinner with friends. Dan did not come. And there is a dent. There's 2 dents in the car. And it's Dan's car. And
Well, it's our car,
but when he first got it, he was so excited about this car. Now I drove it to New York City. I don't know why he wanted me to drive it that night, whatever. I drove it and I stayed overnight. And when I came to pick up the car from the valet at the hotel, I noticed that there was this big scratch in the front of it. And I cried the whole way home because I thought, poor Dan, he's going to be so mad. I don't know how this happened. Oh, how can I be so irresponsible? And I came home, was like, okay, it's a car. And I thought, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that at times we have to get over ourselves.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be compassion in the other end. And if there isn't, get over yourself and still work through that.
Yeah. But I think that comes with maturity as well in relationships and just as individuals. I think also through that maturity, you find your way to, and Dan hinted at this earlier, to not being so immediately reactive.
Right.
And I think, people can hear radical candor and think that's just a nice way of, that's sugarcoating being really aggressive or attacking when you speak to somebody. My definition of radical candor is saying what needs to be said in a factual way rather than an attacking way. So having some class or maturity in communicating a message that needs to be communicated. And as you build on that, as you practice radical candor, you learn to separate the emotion from it, not perfectly, of course, but radical candor allows for the chance at conversations if you have 2 people who are open to communicating that way.
That's right.
And that's the difference that, Dan, you referenced earlier. There's so many things in society, I'm the same, that I wish that people could have conversations more about. I have a ton of friends who don't practice their faith the same way I do, don't have the same kind of relationship that I do in my personal life, that are on a different side of the aisle, so to speak, politically. And that does not faze me. It doesn't make me respect them any less, love them any less. I am somebody that can come to the table. Now, was not always this way, again, in my 20s. But I can come to the table, or I guess I should say, I choose to come to the table from a place of wanting to understand, not to agree.
Yeah.
If you come to the table wanting agreement, that's where it's that
and you're
constant
at the wrong
turmoil or argument. Exactly. But if you come to the table, I can gain understanding of somebody else's stance on any topic that exists without feeling like I have to agree with it.
Right.
And I think if you can do that, it gives you an opportunity to actually have that relationship grow closer because you're willing to hear the other side of things, accept, through understanding where they're coming from or why they feel that way, and then still move forward. I think too many times we get stuck in the idea that we have to agree to be able to move forward in a positive way.
Yeah. Agreed.
And it gets in the way of building lasting and meaningful relationships way too much these days.
Always.
But
always.
On that topic, I want to ask you guys 2 questions as we kind of round this down today. I think I had a bunch of questions to kind of guide this, but I think we answered most of them through the conversation. So I'm going to ask Dan to go first.
Okay.
And then you, Julie.
Okay.
So do you want me to ask the questions separately or throw them both out there and you can give me a combined answer?
No, ask them separately so that we can give you a more, like on the moment kind of without having to think about it.
Okay. So first question.
All right.
What has been the most rewarding part of creating together?
The most rewarding part of creating together. Wow, this is a tough one.
No, I know what I'm going to say.
You know?
Yeah, but I'm not going first, so go ahead.
You know what? I have to say one of the most rewarding parts, and maybe this isn't the answer that Julie expects, but I've always been told my whole life, and there's been certain people in my family who said, you never work with someone in your family. It's always going to go bad.
Yep.
And there were certain situations where people did, and it didn't work out.
Yep.
And knowing that we can work together and work through those problems, and we kind of talked about this quite a bit already, makes me feel that this is a relationship that's built to last. And there was a time in my life when I was married before where I thought that was built to last. But it was a belief, and I didn't have that concrete proof. And that relationship proved that it wasn't built to last. And not getting into all the details, but that was a tough time for me, because I was a person who was strong in my beliefs. I don't know if you knew this or if any of our listeners know this, but I was going to school. I was a theology major, and I was studying to be a priest. And I left that calling because I thought I was called to marry my first wife.
Yeah.
And when that marriage fell apart, that rocked my foundation. That rocked my faith. I never got to the point where it rocked my belief in God. But it rocked me to the core there. And again, through pain and trials, you come out at the other side. You have that, I found friends that I never would have known. And they say iron sharpens steel, sharpens steel, iron sharpens iron. And that made me a better person there. And I came out of that and have this new relationship. And I say new, we were married in 2012.
That's still new. You're newlyweds. Yeah,
but
fine.
It still feels new to me. And for the fact that we are working together in the same room and we're not strangling each other, it's so rewarding to be able to spend this time with a person you really like.
Yeah.
And be able to do this job. And that's probably the most rewarding part. So
I love that. Thank you for that. That was really nice. I think that we can all strive for that. And I hope that some of our listeners might be in similar situations where in some form or fashion they work together and, they take some of these things you guys are sharing to apply them or maybe get a different perspective. So thank you for that. How about you?
And I'm sorry. And I'm not saying that it's like, oh, Superman. Not everyone is going to be able to work with their spouse like
100%.
I'm not saying that don't strive for that. If that's not if that's not you, then that's not you. Yep. And that's totally fine. So just saying that's my personal experience and what I find the most rewarding.
Yeah. I love that. Chris and I had desks in the same room for a period of time when Braxton first came home from the military and moved back to the house because my office is his old bedroom. So we squished in the media room on different ends and we drove each other crazy all day long. Now, we do work together on some things very well, But yeah, I think it's a growing.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a growing process too. I'm sure you guys do a lot of things better today than when you started 5 years ago on this endeavor. So,
Yeah.
All right, Julie, how about you?
So I do want to clarify that, we do work very closely together. And there are moments that I want to, take a piece of paper, ball it up and throw it at his head because it's just, the reaction I may have sometimes. But the thing that's been the most rewarding, and immediately it came to mind, and it really is the most rewarding, seeing Dan be in his sweet spot. Because I knew him when he first left the priesthood track. I knew him as a newly married, super doe-eye in love. I knew him as someone who was having difficulties. And I knew him when I wanted him to date and find the right girl for him because he was such a nice guy. And I set him up with every friend, right, that I could think of. And seeing him, right, in this sweet spot where he shines, where all of his gifts that are immense and that, I always get so amazed. All of his gifts are put in a place where he is shining and where he's good at and where he complements my crazy. And I think that that's been the most rewarding, to know that he has the opportunity to not just be a worker bee, because there's nothing wrong with being a worker bee, but he gets to, for the first time, give himself permission to say, I can shine, and that's great. And I can dream, and that's better.
Yeah.
So I think
and you get
that's
to witness
rewarding.
that.
Yeah.
You
I
get to witness that.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. So last question for each of you individually, and it may cross over, but what is the impact you most hope to have through the work, your roles in the work that y'all do together?
I'll answer it first.
Yes.
And the impact, I think our answer is probably going to be similar. And I've always thought of myself as someone that eventually will have an impact on somebody's life in a positive way. There was always this, what's the saying, the hiking saying, and I've mentioned this on our podcast, trash in, trash out. Leave a place better than you found it. And that's always something that I've always talked about. When you meet a person, leave them better than you found them. I mean, it's not your job to save people and, go and fix people. And as men,
he tries to fix, all right.
As men, a lot of some tendencies there are, when your wife has a problem, you try to fix it. And sometimes you need to just let it breathe. But sorry, that's a little sidebar. So
that's all right.
I hope that when I come into somebody's life, I leave them better for it. And I have had disappointment in my life so yes, it is a business. And we have clients. But this isn't something where you go in and you're doing it just to make a living. You're going in to help other people have their living, and not just financial, but start living, what their dreams are. And if I can help bring somebody a little closer by doing a silly little juge to an audio file or a video file, if that makes their life better by supplying that service, then that makes me feel like I'm doing something, that I'm making an impact on other people's lives.
Yeah.
So I guess that's my answer.
I love it. That's a great answer. How about you, Miss Julie?
So I want to take it a step further, and I think that this has always been something that I've, from an early age, I saw legacy being created around me with my grandmother. And I knew that, and the phrase "to those much given, much is expected" was something that I really grew up with. And of course, those like high achieving tendencies have been there. But as someone who doesn't have kids, I know that my legacy is not necessarily going to be carried on through a child, someone that lives on, but it's going to be carried on in podcasts like this one, where someone maybe is sitting on the sidelines, wondering whether they should take the next step, or was laid off and didn't know what that's going to look like on the other side. Or and through the work that we do, it's not just my legacy, it's the legacy that I'm helping others create so that they themselves leave their mark in this world, in the lives of others. And then those people who hear that message that you and Daphne and Julia, Kristen, everybody, right?
Yep.
All of those messages are going to then impact other people and change and build. We can't live in a perfect world, but we can make the world perfect for us because of the people that we learn from, because of the lessons that we gain. And that's what I'm getting out of this. And that's why I think I love the work that we do.
Yeah. That was a really beautiful answer too. In the work I do, it's all about creating legacy very much from the finance side, because that's what my focus is helping people with their finances. And I tell people all the time, I want to change my last name forever for my son, for my grandkids, through some kind of legacy that I leave behind. And it doesn't have to be monetary. As a matter of fact, I think the most important things we leave behind are the impact that we made on the world or the people that we were around. And one of the things that in my industry, we really talk about a lot, and I think even in the entrepreneur realm, it's talked about a lot. Who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? Who are the people you allow to impact you? And I think that you have different circles, right? Who do you let impact you in the business part of your life? Who do you let impact you in your personal life? Because those don't always overlap. But I think it's important to think about that. Am I letting people impact my life for the better based on the legacy I want to leave? But that makes me a part of the legacy that they're creating and leaving behind as well. And I think that's a really beautiful thing, is a lot of people in their own way trying to leave a legacy, and somewhere all those things overlap and can impact even more people through things like this, where we're sharing the message, we're sharing the stories, the experience, all of that kind of stuff. So before I completely close this thing down, Julie, Dan, whoever wants to throw this out there, where can people find you, follow you, listen to your podcast, get help with podcasts, whatever they're looking for that you guys do?
So
can I say one quick thing?
Oh, sure.
Yes, please.
Right before that?
Yes.
Because I've had the privilege of editing your podcast, your financial podcast, from the beginning, and I found it incredibly informative, incredibly valuable, and the topics that you talked about were great. And this conversation today is just getting me excited about what's going to happen next for you and for this show. So this is, it was great before, but now you're taking a big lung full of air, and you're going to be able to talk about so many other things.
Yeah.
And I can't wait I thought your show was incredible before. I can't wait to see how much more incredible it's going to become. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
No, thank you. So Julie,
I'm excited about it too. Yeah. I'm excited about it. And I'm excited to be partnered with you guys. You are part of my group of people that makes me better.
Thank you.
Not just by tweaking a couple things on the voice recorder or a video snippet, but just being around you, being influenced by you. And Dan, while you are the man in the chair, often behind the scenes, you have more influence than you realize. And so for that, I say thank you.
Thank you. I will be editing myself a lot for this episode. No, I'll leave it raw.
There you go.
Julie, where can they find us?
Well, you can find everything Dan and Julie at goconfidentlycoaching.com, and that will take you to the website either for our podcast or the coaching services. But more importantly, also, if you want to create a legacy, if you have a message and you want to become the thought leader, Casa De Confidence Productions is the family that welcomes you to be able to go and do that.
Awesome. Please go check them out, you guys. There's so much more to what they do than we even had a chance to dip our toes into today. And for Nat's hot take to wind down this episode, here's one thing that drives me a little bit crazy. People who say, I'll do it when. I'll do it when I have enough money. I'll do it when I have enough time. I'll do it when it makes more sense, when my kids get older, when I retire. Newsflash. If you don't do it now, when you feel the calling to go in that direction, you likely won't ever do it at all. So stop staying stuck in your comfort zone like we talked about earlier. Dip your toes in. Take a chance. Bet on yourself, because it might just be better than you could have ever imagined. And your future self is likely going to say thank you. So, all right, friends, that's a wrap to the first official guest show for Chat with Nat. Conversations that count. There's Julie with her pom-pom if you get to see this clip on video. But a huge thank you, Julie and Dan, for joining me, for being the magic behind the scenes of this podcast and so much more that I do in my business and life. Life is not about doing everything perfectly. It's about making progress that counts in the areas that matter most. So if you love today's chat, make sure you hit subscribe, share this episode with a friend, and drop us a review. It helps keep these conversations going. And hey, don't forget to start that small step with your money, with your relationship, with your job, wherever it is you need to take a step right now, because those small steps add up to big time freedom. So until next time, keep the faith, hug your people, take care of your money, move your body, and don't forget to have some fun. I'll see you on the next Chat with Nat.